He said I was too much, so I became his stepmom and cut his inheritance. Part 2. Chapter 10, A Toast to Terrible Men. It was supposed to be a quiet evening. A tasteful little cocktail party. 40 guests. One grand piano. Champagne fountains, oyster towers, and one poor violinist who didn't know he was about to play background music for a public act of emotional arson. The invitations called it a celebration of new beginnings. But she called it what it truly was. A purge in designer couture. Her ex was there. Of course. Invited under the fragile pretense of family unity. He wore all black, as if in mourning. For what? His dignity? His inheritance? His past? Hard to say. Also present. 2 of her ex's former flings, now married, miserable, and low-key obsessed with her. 3 ex-co-workers who once called her unprofessional. 1 aunt who famously told her to tone it down. Several hedge fund managers who'd hit on her after the engagement was public. A local gossip columnist who came purely for the free alcohol and potential blackmail. And, of course, Charles, in full patriarchal splendor, unaware, or choosing to be unaware, that his new wife was about to turn this party into a theatrical bloodbath with hors d'oeuvres. Blood-red satin. Backless. Slit so high it violated zoning laws. She paired it with diamonds so sharp they glinted like fangs. She didn't walk into the room, she descended into it, martini in hand, as if summoned by the ghost of vengeance itself. The violinist hit a minor key when she passed. He felt it. She clinked her crystal flute, real baccarat, not that wedding registry nonsense, and smiled. Everyone turned. Silence fell. Glasses rose. "My darlings," she began, in a tone so velvet smooth it could suffocate a man in his sleep, "thank you for coming to celebrate this wildly unexpected chapter in my life." Charles smiled. Her ex twitched. She continued. "I was once told I was too emotional. Too dramatic." A murmur. A visible shift in posture across the room. Some even said I was not marriage material. More murmurs. A coughing fit. One woman dropped a shrimp canop. She turned to Charles, touched his arm gently, and added, "But then I met a man who saw all of that and said, good. I like it wild." Laughter. Nervous. Scattered. Except from her ex, who had begun sweating in places that don't usually sweat indoors. She raised her glass higher. "So tonight, I propose a toast. To every man who underestimated me. Every boy who flinched at my fire and tried to call it a flaw." She turned, eyes locking with her ex across the room like a heat-seeking missile. "To terrible men. May they live long enough to see what they lost." Gasps. A choking noise. One man whispered, "Holy shit." She downed the champagne in one fluid motion. And the party exploded. The ex stormed out, again, tripping over a decorative planter and knocking over a tray of petit fours. Someone shouted, "Oh my God, was that about him?" The gossip columnist was already texting a headline. Wife. Stepmom. Legend. The toast heard round the estate. Charles. He just chuckled. "She's got a flair for the dramatic," he told a guest. "Isn't it magnificent?" It wasn't just words. It was a public reclamation. A poetic scalpel. A call to arms for every woman who had ever been told to calm down, sit down, or dim her light. By the time dessert was served, the legend had begun to solidify. She wasn't just Mrs. Langford. She was a myth wrapped in red satin, holding a flute full of fire. Chapter 11, Sunday Brunch, Sunday Scorn. Sunday brunch at the Langford estate had once been a quiet affair. Croissants. Classical music. Charles muttering into his newspaper while Gatsby napped beside the fireplace. Civilized. Predictable. Boring. But now? Now, Sunday Brunch was a theatrical production, a performance in 3 acts. Act I, Champagne. Act II, Confrontation. Act III, Cataclysmic collapse of male egos. And this Sunday? This Sunday was her masterpiece. She sent the invitations herself. Handwritten. Velvet paper. No RSVP required. They all knew better. Langford Estate Sunday Brunch. Dress code, elegant but subtle. Drama is always welcome. She told Charles it would be intimate. He smiled and agreed, unaware that intimate meant inviting his estranged son and the 22-year-old girlfriend he was allegedly serious about. Yes. Her. The girl from Instagram. The one who had once commented you could do better under an old photo of them together. Oh, she remembered. She remembered everything. They arrived late. Predictable. The girlfriend, all dewy skin and insecure bravado, wore a skin-tight blush pink mini dress that screamed sorority formal. Hair like beach waves. Teeth like a toothpaste commercial. The kind of girl who called herself an old soul because she listened to Fleetwood Mac on vinyl. Her ex trailed behind her, trying to look important in a blazer 2 sizes too large. His face, already strained, turned an alarming shade of regret when he saw who was hosting. She floated across the terrace like a vengeful swan. Black chiffon. Barefoot. Holding a mimosa like a loaded pistol. Well, she cooed, if it isn't our little family reunion. The table was absurd. Crystal pitchers of blood orange juice. Lavender-infused scones. Truffle butter. Poached eggs resting on a brioche throne. And in the center, her, casually commanding the room with a devilish smile and a glint of calculated violence in her eye. The girlfriend giggled. A bit too loudly. Tried to say something about how this house is, like, totally gorgeous. She tilted her head and said, "Thank you, sweetheart. It was so bland before I got here." Her ex choked slightly on his espresso. She didn't blink. Charles leaned over to whisper something in her ear. She laughed, loudly. Sexily. Purposefully. The girlfriend narrowed her eyes. She sipped her mimosa. Checkmate, bubby. I've always thought age gaps can be so enriching, she said sweetly, buttering a scone with surgical precision. The girlfriend perked up. Totally. Like, maturity is hot, right? Oh, darling, she said, resting her chin on her hand, I wasn't talking about men being older. I meant when women are older. It's such a power move. The girlfriend's jaw tightened. Also, she added, tilting her head innocently, you remind me so much of myself at your age. Lost. Hopeful. Misinformed. Silence. Her ex tried to cut in. Can we not do this? She smiled. Do what, sweetheart? Brunch. As everyone stood to refill their glasses, she made her move. She gently took the girlfriend aside, led her to the garden, and looked her dead in the eye. You seem sweet, she said, voice silk over steel. So here's a little advice. Pause. Smile. You're not his future. You're just the girl he found while grieving his ego. She didn't wait for a reply. She walked away, hips swaying, sunlight bouncing off her champagne flute like a signal flare to the gods. By the end of brunch, the girlfriend was fake smiling so hard her lip twitched. Her ex was sulking near the koi pond like a cursed prince. Charles was pouring her another mimosa and murmuring, "You are wicked, my love." And her? She was glowing. Radiant. Invincible. She had turned brunch, that sacred space of bougie peace, into a battlefield, and won without raising her voice. Chapter 12, Portrait of a Breakup Text. Every great estate has a portrait. A founding patriarch. A matriarch in pearls. A long-dead general. A horse, if the family was especially uninteresting. But this would be different. Because she didn't want a painting. She wanted a moment. A memory. A masterpiece. She wanted to immortalize humiliation. She found it buried in her screenshots folder. The breakup text. Plain. Tasteless. Emotionally bankrupt. You're great, but you're just too much. I need someone a little more stable. Hope you understand. No punctuation. No apology. No soul. Just one final, lazy flick of emotional cowardice. Sent at 2:04 a.m. on a Tuesday. Probably while he was in bed, shirtless and proud of himself. She had cried then. Now, she simply whispered, perfect. She called her designer friend, the one with an unhealthy obsession with ironic gallery installations and too many turtlenecks for summer weather. I need a frame, she said. He replied, what kind? Gilded? Minimalist? Rococo? She smiled. I want it to look like regret. 3 days later, it arrived. 7 feet tall. Gold frame, cracked and dramatic, like a crumbling dynasty. A black velvet mat. And in the center, a high-resolution printout of the breakup text, centered, serif font, professionally typeset, and double-spaced for dramatic tension. It looked like it had been ripped from the archives of heartbreak, sacred, dangerous, and disturbingly elegant. She didn't tuck it away in a guest bedroom. No. This went in the main hall. Right above the grand fireplace. Between 2 oil paintings of European ancestors Charles couldn't name and didn't like. The staff gasped. The butler paled. Charles asked, is this a performance piece? She replied, no, darling. It's a warning. He laughed and poured her another glass of wine. He never asked again. Her ex came to the estate the following weekend, some desperate, misguided mission to salvage pride or property. Probably both. He entered the hall, smirking. Then he saw it. He stopped. Stared. Eyes widened like he'd just walked into his own funeral. It took him 3 full minutes to speak. You framed it. She descended the stairs slowly, in silk and sin, heels echoing like judgment. Oh, not just framed, she said sweetly. Professionally cured. Museum glass. UV protected. You're insane. She smiled. No. I'm immortalizing your mediocrity. At cocktail parties, people gathered around it like it was the Mona Lisa. I heard this was the actual breakup text, they'd whisper. Is it real? Oh yes. She printed it straight from her iCloud. They'd sip their champagne and stare at it in reverent awe. I've never seen performance vengeance executed so tastefully. She's a pioneer. Honestly. It's art. At night, when the fire crackled beneath it, the light would flicker against the glass, reflecting the text like a ghost of bad decisions past. She'd curl up on the couch, a martini in hand, Gatsby at her feet, and smile. He had tried to reduce her to a text message. Now the text was reduced to a decorative cautionary tale. Framed. Glorified. Burned into the collective memory of everyone who walked into that room. Chapter 13, Lawyered Up and Loving It. Some women carry clutches. Some carry trauma. She She carried a legal folder thick enough to kill a small rodent. Because revenge wasn't finished when the champagne stopped flowing or when the ex-boyfriend fled a brunch like a haunted Victorian child. No, revenge required paperwork. Real revenge. It gets notarized. It was a Tuesday. She wore white slacks, a cashmere turtleneck, despite the heat, and a red lip that said "I'll take your house and your soul" in the same afternoon. Charles had set the meeting. "Just some quick updates to the estate plan," he said casually. But she had been ready for this moment since the breakup text first landed in her inbox and shattered her belief in minimalism. They arrived at the firm, Langford, Rees and Pendle, an old money trio with an office view that overlooked the city and the rest of society. His name was Gavin. Pinstripe suit. Hairline carefully maintained. A smile that said "I once sued my own brother." He welcomed them in with the practiced ease of a man who could ruin you via Clause 14C. Charles made small talk. She did not. She sat across from Gavin, legs crossed, calm and lethal. When he pulled out the current version of the will, she pretended not to already know every line of it. She had memoized the entire thing. "Mr. Langford would like to make some changes," Gavin began. She nodded once. "We're aware." Item by item, Gavin read off the revisions as she sipped her flat white like it was a weapon. Heavy checkmark. Charles's liquid assets were now split between her and various philanthropic causes she had chosen, including the Too Much Foundation. Yes, it was real now. Heavy checkmark. The beachfront property in the Hamptons. Hers. Heavy checkmark. The Langford art collection. Hers. Heavy checkmark. The family trust. Frozen, until further notice. And guess who held the notice? Heavy checkmark. The former heir. Removed. Not reduced. Not trimmed. Removed. Per Charles's instruction, Gavin said coolly, "His son will receive no direct inheritance at this time." She smiled. Like a queen sipping tea while her enemies screamed outside the castle walls. Charles didn't hesitate. He didn't ask for a second look. He picked up the pen, not just any pen, but a custom Mont Blanc she had gifted him engraved with the phrase "never too much." He signed. She watched the ink dry. It was done. Legally. Permanently. Irrevocably. After the meeting, they went to lunch at a discreet rooftop bistro that didn't even have a public website. As the server placed their drinks on the table, Charles asked, "Do you think we were too harsh?" She sipped her martini and said, "No. I think we were elegant." He laughed. "My attorney thinks you're terrifying." She turned to face him fully. "Gavin uses Helvetica on his invoices. I'm not afraid of a man who lacks typographic vision." Later that night, she lit a candle in the study, poured herself a neat scotch, and reread the signed documents for fun. Each page was a symphony of control. A masterpiece of structured retribution. There were no more loose ends. No more what-ifs. She had taken everything he thought was his birthright, and done it in heels, without raising her voice once. Now the estate was hers in all the ways that mattered. By charm. By ceremony. By Clause 17, subparagraph B. She didn't steal the throne. She had it transferred via legal courier. Chapter 14, Spa Days and Spite. There are many ways to recover from a legal ambush that obliterates your ex's inheritance. You could cry, hide, feel a little guilty. But she booked a spa day. Because spite doesn't have to be loud. It can be calm, dewy, and wrapped in an $800 robe. Eden 7 was no ordinary spa. It was elite. Discreet. The kind of place that catered to the new money pretending to be old money crowd, and more importantly, the women who had successfully annihilated old money and taken its throne. It sat hidden on a private hilltop, behind wrought iron gates and a policy of no press, no judgment, no phones. Perfect for the recently wed, recently rich, and recently victorious. She brought no entourage. Just herself, a pair of sunglasses large enough to block out poor decisions, and an iPad filled with anonymous burner social media accounts she used exclusively for observation and amusement. As soon as she stepped inside, a woman in linen whispered, "Welcome, Mrs. Langford," with the kind of hushed reverence usually reserved for royalty and final confessions. She was escorted to a private suite, eucalyptus mist diffused in the air, champagne already chilling in a crystal bucket. The moment the door closed behind her, she exhaled deeply. Not from exhaustion, from triumph. And then she began planning. While cucumber slices rested gently on her eyelids and two attendants massaged her arms in synchronized rhythm, she mentally organized her next few weeks of high society sabotage. Send a donation to her ex's startup, exactly $1, marked for emotional damages. Commission a portrait of Charles and herself, in the style of Napoleon and Josephine. Secure the seat next to her ex's new girlfriend at the upcoming charity gala and ask loudly if she's interning. Order a monogrammed throw blanket with the phrase "wife material." Because revenge wasn't a moment. It was a lifestyle brand. She selected the Empress Detox Wrap, to purge any lingering guilt molecules. A power peel, because glowing skin is a threat. And a 90-minute deep tissue massage called the Renunciation, which promised to release decades of stored tension and old attachments. She asked the therapist to focus on her shoulders, where she had carried every insult about being too much. "I can feel the anger," the masseuse whispered reverently. "Oh," she replied, "that's not anger. That's legacy." Somewhere between the lavender scalp rub and the rose water facial steam, she had a vision. A candlelit estate. A room full of heirs and enemies. A toast, again, but this time from her ex's former therapist, now one of her clients. She smiled. "I need a new therapist," she said aloud. "Someone with degrees and discretion." They brought her soba noodles, seaweed salad, and champagne served in a hollowed-out ice sphere. She ate slowly, scrolling through gossip blogs under a fake name. One headline caught her eye. "Heiress or hustler? The woman who rewrote the Langford legacy." She clicked. She read. She laughed. And then she forwarded it anonymously to her ex's email with the subject line, "Good read. Thought of you." She didn't float out. She glided. Her skin glowed like a cursed gemstone. Her hair smelled like jasmine secrets. Her confidence had exfoliated itself into diamond-hard clarity. She had entered the spa with legal documents on her mind. She left with a refreshed soul, a week's worth of vengeance fully mapped out, and a new mantra. Self-care is sacred. So is ruin. Chapter 15, The Ex Learns the Truth. There are moments in life that fracture time. For most people, it's a car crash. A lottery win. A birth. For him, it was a will reading. But let's rewind, because before he walked into that room and watched the floor vanish beneath him, there was still a faint, delusional spark in his eyes. He thought he still had options. He thought his inheritance was inevitable. He thought she, his ex, was a blip in his rearview mirror. What he didn't know. She had already set the stage. And he was about to stumble into it like an idiot in designer knockoffs. It arrived by courier, a navy envelope sealed with the Langford crest and a note inside in cold, clean type. Meeting regarding final estate revisions. Presence required. No reschedules. Langford, Rees and Pendle. He assumed it was routine. Boring. Maybe his father was naming him co-chair of something. Maybe he was getting the ski lodge. Or at the very least, a token trust fund to keep him in overpriced sunglasses and failed business ventures. So he wore a blazer. Didn't even shave. He didn't know it would be a funeral. His own. A glass-panelled conference room with too much wood trim and not enough oxygen. Inside. Charles, composed and caffeinated. Gavin, the lawyer, with his Mont-Blanc pen and zero pity. And her, perched like a queen on a leather chair, wearing black silk, drinking tea as if it were blood. She didn't look at him when he entered. She didn't need to. Her presence filled the room like smoke, the kind that smells expensive, burns slowly, and makes you remember every mistake you ever made. Gavin cleared his throat, unfolded the pages, and began. A list of assets, trusts, and luxury properties flowed like a symphony of money. The ex's eyes glazed with greed. Until. To my son, I leave nothing. Silence. He blinked. Excuse me. Gavin adjusted his glasses. Nothing. As per the updated estate plan. Instead, I leave him with this document, a reflection of character and consequence. And then, with perfect theatrical timing, Gavin slid a framed copy of the breakup text across the table. Yes, that text. You're a lot. I don't think you're wife material. It's not you, it's the chaos. It had been printed, framed, and now officially inherited. He stood. His chair clattered. His voice cracked. This is a joke, right? Tell me this is some sick joke. She looked up, finally. Oh, it's hilarious, she said calmly, sipping her tea. But no, darling. Not a joke. Just consequences. Charles remained seated. You should have treated her better. Or at least shut up. But she's insane. She manipulated you. She tilted her head. You're just mad you got out manipulated. He turned red. Then pale. Then ashen, like a boy who finally realized the monster under his bed was wearing heels and drinking out of a crystal teacup. Because of course it escalated. He screamed. Threw a paperweight. Accused her of witchcraft, gold digging, and emotional terrorism. Security entered swiftly, politely, professionally. Sir, we are going to have to ask you to leave. He tried to lunge across the table. She didn't flinch. I'll sue you, he shouted. She laughed. With what money, sweetheart? He was escorted out. Shaking. Defeated. Ruined. His final image of her. Leaning back in her chair, legs crossed, the glow of victory radiating from her like divine light. She didn't say goodbye. She just tapped her glass gently, as if toasting the utter destruction of his last hope. And that was how he learned the truth. The inheritance? Gone. The estate? Hers. The legacy? Rewritten. The girl he called too much? Now his stepmother, executioner, and final cautionary tale. Chapter 16, Confrontation in the Conservatory. Some men don't learn. Even after public humiliation, financial disinheritance, and emotional evisceration, they come back, desperate, deluded, and disproportionately confident. He returned to the estate like a wounded lion. Except lions don't show up in a Subaru with last week's dry cleaning still in the back seat. He thought there would be a confrontation. He was right. But he didn't realize he'd be the only one swinging, while she would be lounging on a chaise with monogrammed pillows and zero remorse. It was her favorite room. All glass. Sunlight poured in like applause. White orchids bloomed in quiet clusters. Birdsong floated outside, just audible over the gentle trill of a piano playlist no one had the courage to question. She was reclining on a chaise lounge, barefoot, draped in a silk robe that whispered expensive chaos. Gatsby lay beside her, lazily chewing on a squeaky pheasant. She held a book, Othello, naturally, but she wasn't reading. She was waiting. Because she knew he'd come. The doors flung open with the subtlety of a soap opera entrance. He was red-faced, breathing heavily, wearing that awful hoodie he thought made him look artsy. It didn't. You, he hissed. You manipulative. She held up a finger. One. Single. Finger. Before you finish that sentence, she said, without looking up, please remember, you're shouting at your stepmother. His face contorted. You don't deserve that title. She closed the book. Neither did you, she purred, but we all make peace with disappointment eventually. He paced, wild-eyed. You destroyed my family. I joined it. You turned my father against me. He did that himself. I just handed him the mirror. You're a gold digger. She tilted her head, amused. And yet I have more class in my manicure than you do in your LinkedIn. You're not even from this world, this circle. She finally stood. Slowly. Gracefully. Dangerously. You mean I wasn't born into wealth? She asked, stepping closer. You're right. I built myself from heartbreak and ambition. I earned every carat, every contract, every inch of this estate. He scoffed. This is all a game to you? No, darling, she said softly. This is revenge. He lunged. Not physically, not quite. But he stepped forward fast, too fast, full of stupid masculine energy and the desperation of someone who'd lost everything. She didn't flinch. Instead, she picked up a throw pillow. A perfectly embroidered, custom-made, gold-trimmed throw pillow, monogrammed with her initials and the Langford family crest. Then, without breaking eye contact, she threw it. Square in the chest. He stumbled back, caught entirely off guard by the sheer indignity. What the hell? She smiled. I just wanted you to know what it feels like to be hit by taste. As he staggered, humiliated and breathless, she delivered the final monologue. I was once your girlfriend. You told me I was too much. I became your father's wife. Now I'm your stepmother. And soon, when I change every monogram towel in this house, I'll make sure even your initials don't belong here anymore. He looked around. Saw the decor had changed. The family portraits had shifted. The house had turned into her empire, one silk curtain at a time. Gatsby barked once, sharply, as if to say, the door's that way, loser. He turned. Defeated. Humiliated. She watched him go, then poured herself a glass of elderflower iced tea from the bar cart. She returned to her chaise, flipped open Othello, and whispered to herself. Men always return for Act 3. That's when I close the curtain. Chapter 17, Daddy's got a brand new bag, and wife. Charles Langford III had never been a handbag man. Until now. Because suddenly, at charity events, gala dinners, art auctions, and whispered after-parties, he wasn't Charles Langford III anymore. He was the guy married to her. Her husband? Mr. Langford, yes, that one. He was the bag. And she? She was the whole outfit. Before her, Charles had been a relic. Wealthy but dusty. Influential, but fading, the kind of man you invited out of obligation and seated near the jazz trio. But after the wedding? After the will change? After the portrait of the breakup text? He became a cultural phenomenon by association. His cologne sales spiked. A luxury magazine did a spread titled Power, Pearls, and Property, Inside the Langford Renaissance. Young influencers started calling him Zaddy Langford on TikTok. Charles. He didn't mind. He liked the attention. But even more than that, he liked her. He liked being the man next to the woman who made the room hush when she walked in. She didn't enter a party. She descended. Usually 30 minutes late. Always overdressed. And somehow, always aware of the lighting. At the Langford Foundation Gala, she arrived in gold sequins and silence, with Charles 2 steps behind her and everyone else 2 centuries behind her aura. At the Monaco art auction, she bid on a surrealist sculpture with one raised brow and a flick of her wrist. 1. Paid in full. Donated it to a museum with a plaque that read, "In honor of chaos. She made me. Mrs. Langford." Charles stood beside her, glowing. Clapping. His tie matched her heels. He said little. He didn't have to. He was accessory level perfect. Magazines dubbed them the Ice Queen and the Tycoon. One blog called them America's sexiest tax shelter. The whispers were delicious. She's half his age. She rewrote his will. She used to date his son. She destroyed his son. All true. All better than fiction. She leaned into the mystique. At every event, she kissed Charles softly on the cheek, just enough to silence critics and spark envy. And when people asked how they met, she always answered, "Oh, I dated someone once. Then I upgraded." The thing is, Charles loved this version of himself. He was sharper. More alive. He got Botox. Started Pilates. Bought a new wardrobe, all tailored by her stylist. His blood pressure dropped. His stock portfolio rose. He had always been a man of influence. Now he was a man of iconography. One tabloid published a photo of him adjusting her train at a gala with the caption, "He carries her bag, her legacy, and her last nerve, and he's thrilled to do it." He couldn't escape them. They were in magazines. In his feed. On the billboards near his sad little startup's co-working space. She had once cried over him in a diner. Now she was holding court in the Riviera, dripping in Cartier and consequences, while his father beamed like he'd won the emotional lottery. Charles once carried the Langford name like a burden. Now? He carried her Birkin bag with pride. And when someone asked him if he minded playing second fiddle in his own empire, he smiled and said, "When the music's this good, who cares who's conducting?"
Thanks for watching. If this story hit home, don't forget to like the video. It helps more people discover powerful stories like this one. Leave a comment below and tell us what you think, or share your own experience. Subscribe to Revenge and Strong Women for more emotional, gripping tales where strength rises and justice is served. And don't forget to hit the bell so you never miss an upload. Around here, pain doesn't break us, it builds us. And the best revenge is showing them who you became after they tried to destroy you.